An owner opens the Tesla app, taps through to a trade-in estimate on a truck he paid about $100,000 for a year earlier, and the number that comes back is $63,100. 19,000 miles on it. He shared the screenshot. Another owner, different trim, more than 10,000 miles apart in mileage, got a figure landing in almost exactly the same place proportionally, around 38% gone in 12 months. That's the number this video has to deal with honestly, because it's the first thing anyone brings up. It is also nowhere near the whole story, and some of what gets said about this truck online is nonsense. So let's separate the two. Before we go on, a small thing that matters. Nothing in here is me telling you what a Cybertruck is like to drive, because I've never driven one and I don't get given cars. Everything here traces back to owners, what they posted, what their service invoices said, what the regulators filed, and what they told each other when they were deciding whether to keep it. Where I'm not sure, I'll say I'm not sure. Everything stands as of the end of July 2026. First, some honesty about what 1 year of ownership even means here, because the lineup has moved constantly. A single-motor rear-wheel drive version launched and was killed off after roughly 5 months on weak demand. A new lower-content dual-motor AWD arrived in February this year as the entry point, and the Cyberbeast had $15,000 taken off it. Depending on which source you read, that base AWD is quoted at either $60,000 or $70,000. That's not sloppy journalism. That's how much the price has moved. Check the configurator on the day, and note that this truck isn't sold new in the UK, Ireland, Australia, or New Zealand at all. So if you're watching from there, the US sticker is roughly $50,000 to $55,000 before anything else, and it's an import problem, not a showroom one. Now the part that gets buried under the memes. Owners generally like driving it. A lot. The powertrain and core EV hardware come out of the data looking solid. That's the consistent finding across the complaint records. 800-volt architecture, so it charges faster than any other Tesla. 325 miles of range. 11,000 pounds of towing on the Premium and Cyberbeast. 2,500 pounds of payload, a composite bed that doesn't need a liner, and four-wheel steering that makes an 18-foot truck turn like something much smaller. Owner reviews on the mainstream sites skew positive. People who bought it because they wanted this specific thing largely still want it, and I'd rather say that plainly at the start than sneak it in after 12 minutes of complaints, right? Conditions. This is where a truck earns its money. Towing first, because the 11,000-pound number does a lot of work in the marketing. Real-world reports with a trailer around 4,500 pounds put you at roughly 110 to 120 miles per charge at motorway speed. Unloaded, independent testing of the higher trims lands near 250 miles at highway speed in mild weather. So the truck will pull the thing. Whether you can get where you're going is a separate question, and if your route crosses the prairies or the Rockies with a tall trailer, you are planning around chargers in a way a diesel owner simply doesn't have to. Cold on top of that. Cybertruck owners in the northern states and across Canada describe the usual winter EV maths, and it compounds badly with towing. That's the combination that shows up as complaints in January rather than either factor alone. If you tow in winter, have your expectations and then check. Rough surfaces and off-road. And here's the one to actually pay attention to. In May, Tesla recalled 173 trucks from the 2024 to 2026 model years fitted with the optional 18-inch steel wheels because cracks can develop around the stud holes in the brake rotors and allow a wheel stud to separate from the hub. NHTSA Campaign 26V255. Remedy is replacement of rotors, hubs, and lug nuts at no cost, with letters mailed on the 20th of June. The early warning some owners noticed was vibration or unusual noise. 173 vehicles is a small number. Wheel separation is not a small consequence, and repeated hard braking on trails stresses rotors more than pavement does. So if you bought one to take off tarmac, verify your VIN before you go. Heat deserves a mention too. Bare stainless in an Arizona or Texas car park gets hot enough that owners talk about it the way they talk about black paint, and the enormous glass area means the air conditioning works for its living. The upside is genuine, no clear coat to fade, no paint to chalk, and stone chips that would ruin a painted tailgate just don't register the same way. It's one of the few areas where the material choice pays you back. Urban life is its own condition. Owners' most common practical criticisms are visibility and cargo access. It's a very tall, very square truck with a bed you reach into over a high side. There's a well-documented case of an early buyer who moved from a house with a driveway into an apartment complex and simply couldn't fit the truck in the parking structure. Measure your garage, then measure the entrance to it, because that's the one that catches people. And then there's a condition I've never had to write about on any other vehicle, which is how people react to it. A luxury dealer in New Jersey described the market turning. Buyers telling him nobody wanted them anymore, one owner calling him after someone threw a rock at the truck with his children in the back, others fitting stickers to distance themselves from the brand's politics. I'm not going to litigate any of that here. It's not my place, and it's not what this channel is for. But if a chunk of the public reacting to your car is a thing you'd find exhausting, that is genuinely part of ownership right now, and you're allowed to weigh it. On the wider official record, and this is why the recall count gets quoted at you, 11 campaigns since deliveries began in late 2023. The one that made the news was the 2024 accelerator pedal, where the pad could slide forward and jam under the interior trim, traced back to unapproved soap used during assembly, fixed by replacing the pedal assembly. Then the cant rail, a stainless applique bonded with structural adhesive that could delaminate and separate from the truck at speed, covering 2024 and 2025 vehicles built between November 2023 and February 2025, and a service-installed off-road light bar that could come loose from the windscreen because the wrong primer was used, all remedied free of charge. If you're shopping used, treat the cant rail and the pedal as things to confirm were actually done, not assume. The build quality picture, fairly. Consumer Reports rated the 2024 truck much less reliable than other 2024 vehicles, with the weak spots in electronics and body hardware. Independent trackers put it in the mid-50s to mid-60s out of 100. Mixed, not catastrophic. The recurring owner complaints are panel gaps, inconsistent stainless finish, rattles, wind noise, and water finding its way in around doors, glass, and the bed cover. Stainless hides nothing, which makes cosmetic flaws harder to live with than they would be on a painted truck. The single wiper is a running theme, from poor coverage to outright failures. Steering shake somewhere between 50 and 70 miles an hour comes up, usually traced back to tires or balance on particular batches. And the truck inherits Tesla's shared software stack, so phantom braking and driver assist oddities appear here the same way they do on a Model Y. One case stuck with me because of how ordinary it was. A Foundation Series owner who bought on Valentine's Day 2024 and has covered over 33,000 miles listed his year out loud. Both drive inverters replaced in July 2025 for low propulsion faults, and a power conversion system replaced this February after the truck started charging at 24 amps. He wasn't ranting. He said it was becoming a headache. Separately, another owner spent months trying to get a squeak in the front pillar resolved and eventually asked Tesla to buy the truck back. Set against that, the warranty is real. This work was done, and plenty of owners have had none of it. Both things are true, and you should hold both. Money, and this is where I have to tell you, the evidence disagrees with itself. The trade-in numbers I opened with are documented, roughly 34 to 38% in year one on early trucks, against about 20% for a typical new vehicle. One owner posted that he sold his for $88,000 with 2,930 miles on it and reckoned $30,000 had evaporated in 2 months. Foundation Series trucks that changed hands near 100,000 and in the frenzy briefly far above it have been appearing in the 60 to 70,000 band. In Canada, buyers who paid $165,990 Canadian dollars for a Cyberbeast are looking at the sharpest version of that. But other analysis argues the Cybertruck is now holding a larger share of its value than the Model 3 Y, S, or X on the grounds that it's scarce and it keeps people's attention. Kelley Blue Book's own forecast for the 2024 truck is far gentler than the anecdotes. I can't reconcile those, and I'm not going to pretend to. What I think is defensible. If you paid hype prices in 2024, you have taken a beating that is not typical of pickups. If you bought after the cuts, your curve probably looks a lot more like a normal expensive truck. Where it settles from here, nobody knows. And anyone giving you a confident figure is selling something. The ex-owners. What's striking is what they don't say. Very few of them left because it was slow or because it couldn't do the job. The reasons that come up are money, hassle, and attention, the resale hit, repeat service visits for things that should be simple, and being tired of the reaction. The man who couldn't garage, his replaced it with a Model 3 and said Teslas had been good to him for 20 years. That's not a hater, that's someone whose life didn't fit the truck. Which is the fairest thing I can tell you about the Cybertruck at the 1-year mark. It is not a bad vehicle. It is a first-generation stainless steel, genuinely unusual machine with 11 recalls behind it, a strong powertrain, a rough body hardware record, and a resale story that punished the earliest and most enthusiastic buyers hardest. So tell me, if you own one, what's your climate and what's your one complaint? Not the story, the one thing. If you tow with it, I want your real numbers, loaded, at speed, in your weather, and ex-owners, what did you replace it with? And has the regret gone either way? We looked at the Model X at the 1-year mark last week, and the pattern of complaints rhymes more than I expected. And next week, what actually happens to residuals when a vehicle's price gets cut underneath its existing owners, using 3 examples that already played out. That's the picture as it stands. Whatever you land on, buy it with your eyes open. See you in the next one.